Alright, welcome to the dojo video on T4 Abyssal exotic sites in a Gila. This is going to be a somewhat advanced video in the sense that I'm going to assume you already have all the knowledge of the basics. So I'm not going to explain what an Abyssal is, how to do them, how to run them, how the loot works. I'm not going to explain the basics of the Gila really. If you still need some information like that, check out the Abyssal 101 video, also on this channel. That'll give you a better overview and a more intro level knowledge on how to run Abyssal sites. So this video is going to go over how to use a relatively cheap fit Gila to run T4 exotics. T4s are raging. The exotic modifier means that both you and the rats inside the site will have decreased kinetic resistance and enhanced scan resolution. Now the scan res doesn't really matter. It's a nice quality of life thing if you're trying to target frigates, but it really doesn't matter. So it's not a buff really for you or the rats. The reduced kinetic resistance, however, is great for the Gila because even though it reduces your kinetic resistance, it decreases the rats as well. And the Gila gets a pretty hefty buff to kinetic missile damage. Every level Galente cruiser gives 10%, so at max skills you're getting 50% extra kinetic missile damage. That's pretty significant. And also the kinetic drones, the Vespa 2s or Caldari Navy Vespas, are relatively high damage. They're the second highest damage faction drone, the first being the Ogres, or rather the Hammerheads, which are Galente drones. Those are for Firestorm sites, which are unfortunately pretty shitty for Gilas, but I won't get into that in this video. Now this fit overall is pretty much as cheap as you can get for a Gila. It's a regen buffer fit Gila, which means that its tank comes from having a large buffer and thus having a large natural shield recharge. This is helped by you're going to want to have 3 rigs, all core defense field purger 2s. Those increase your shield recharge. So I'm getting 90 HP per second at max recharge, and with all my hardeners on, I'm getting an average of maybe, note that will be reduced, so maybe 65 or so percent average resist. So this 90 HP is probably closer to 300 EHP, which is it's a pretty good tank, and you won't need that much for most anything in T4s except for a couple exceptions, which I will go over later. Now the rest of the fit. It's got an AB, self-explanatory. You can choose to go MWDs. Some people like MWDs, but you have to pulse around, and then if you're scranned, you're kind of screwed, and they use up a lot of cap, so especially in nuding rooms, they're pretty rough. I don't like MWD fits. Then there's 3 shield extenders. That's just increase your buffer and also increase your regen. And then 2 adaptive invuln field 2s. This is just to harden your tank a bit. In the lows, you're going to want 3 DDAs, just for more drone damage, because most of the damage from a Gila is in the drones. For the kinetic sights, you'll only need Vespas and Caldari Navy Vespas. The Navy ones will have a bit better tracking. The Tech 2 ones will have a bit better damage if you have the specialization skill trained up. These are for other sites, so you can ignore the Valkyries. Now in the high slots, it's fill all your hard points with rapid light missile launcher 2s. You're going to want to use Scourge missiles. Whether you use Faction or Fury missiles is up to you. I just use Fury because a little more damage, it clears the sights a little bit faster. But these only do shoot out to 27 with my skills, and the Faction ones shoot out to 37 with my skills, so that's kind of a personal choice. One thing that I also like to do on this fit is fit in a medium ghoul compact NOS. This fit, if you put in the NOS, does require a 2% power grid implant, but that's only like 7 mil, and it definitely is super worth it. The reason is the NOS will give you 33 points if you NOS a target in range, and the invuln field only costs 32 gigajoules. This means that even if you get completely nuded dry, which will happen in some rooms with this fit, you can just NOS a target and cycle on your invuln field for, how long does this last? 10 seconds. That gives you, even if you're totally nuded out, as long as you have a NOS target in range, you can still activate your tank. You're not dead in the water. That's pretty much it for the fit. It's fairly basic. The game is saying it costs about 411 mil total. It's probably closer to maybe 450, 475, depending where you buy it. But it's almost all Tech 2, except for these extenders, which I believe are still pretty cheap. Yeah, like 29 mil total. So these are pretty cheap still. If you want to upgrade this fit a bit, you're going to want to look into changing these DDAs to Imperial Navy or some other faction DDAs for more drone damage, and changing one of the DDAs entirely for a C3X Hiva Satsuo. I'll pull this up here real quick. That's this module, the Hiva Satsuo Ballistic Control System. This will give you some drone damage and missile damage, so overall the DPS will be higher than just 3 DDAs. After that, if you want to increase the bling a bit, you're going to want to bling out the invuln fields and the AB. Make it go a little faster, and also get some dead space invulnerability fields for more tank. That's pretty much it for the fit, so I'm just going to go right into the sight. Again, this is a raging exotic, so it will be a 70% hit to all kinetic resistances, and I believe a 70% buff to scan res, but we don't care about the scan res. Also worth noting, bring some nanite. There's some rooms that, again, I'll explain later, but you'll have to overheat in them to beat them. Now this fit can pretty easily run almost all of the T4 exotic rooms. There's really only 2 rooms that give you trouble. One of them is the Charybdis Tyrannos room, that's the Drifter battleship, and the other room is the 6 Lashak room. Especially if they have a lot of newts or webs in those sorts of rooms, you're going to have to, finesse it a little bit. They're still entirely doable. I did 50 T4 sites in this exact fit and didn't lose a single Gila. But there were some kind of close calls, and I had to overheat sometimes a lot. For this fit, I'm not taking any drugs. I don't have any special implants besides that 2% power grid. So I'm going to go ahead and go in the site. If I don't encounter those 2 difficult rooms, then I will sort of briefly explain how to do them after I finish the site. So we're going in. It should take only about 10 to 11 minutes total, unless I get some unlucky spawns. Now when I'm in the site, I like to sort by type so that I can see all the newts in one place. So this room is pretty easy. It's a Hail Abyssal Overmind and a bunch of frigates. I'm just going to approach the cache, turn on my prop mod and hardeners, wait for them to aggress me, and then drop my drones. Lock up the frigs. I'll kill them off first. I want to kill these webbers first so I can get close to that battleship. I'm going to put 1 drone on each frig because putting 2 of them on one is kind of overkill. And there's a bunch of towers and clouds floating around, but in a passive fit, you don't really care about any of those, except for the blue cloud if there's a Charybdis Tyrannos in system. That will be pretty rough. So a bit of micromanagement, making sure to put 1 drone on each target and then my missiles on 1. Even though they're Furies, they're light missiles, so it's really not too hard to hit these frigates. Now I'm ignoring the Overmind for now, even though he's hitting me a little bit. It kind of hurts, but once I get under his guns, it won't matter. When I get kind of close, I'm going to fire a missile at the cache and approach the wreck. And then I'm just going to start dumping missiles into the Overmind. Oh, there's 1 frig I missed. Yeah, drones on the last frigate. Loot the cache. 13.6, not too bad. And then I'm just going to come and orbit the Overmind at 500, and he won't be able to hit me anymore. So even though I'm at like half shield, which is normally kind of cause for alarm, once I get under his guns, he won't be able to hit me at all. And the peak shield regen is around 33%. So if I fall below 30, I might just keep my hardeners a little bit. But he's getting some good hits on me because I don't have great transversal as I approach him here. Very soon, though, he should be missing. Yeah, he's only grazing me now. Another grazing hit. Oh, penetrating hit. That kind of hurt. And I've actually hit 33%. This is somewhat unusual, but I'm very close to him now. There we go. He's missing me completely. This fit is, of course, cap stable as long as you're not being neuted. You only have 2 invulns and the AB, but, you know, it's nice to have the extra capacitor in case you do get neuted. Once I get close enough, I'm just going to set orbit 500. The key here is, of course, this transversal. I'm going to pull it in a little closer so you can see it. In an AB, in this AB Gila fit, like, seems to be about 200 for the Abyssal Overmind for him to not be able to hit you. That's when you're in close. Also, while orbiting these, you know, sometimes they'll run to the edge of the field, so your orbit might take you slightly into the abyssal depths, but it's like 1 damage, so don't worry about it. And I'm going to head back to the conduit. By the time I get out of range of this guy, he should be dead. There he goes. Going to recall drones, reload my missiles. I'm also going to turn off my invuln fields to preserve some cap and regen a little bit. My general rule of thumb for going into the next room is that I want to have at least 60% cap, 70% shield, and my missile launcher is at least half reloaded. That way, just, you know, with the sort of time that you get into the next room, you have enough buffer. Also, it's worth noting that you should keep your prop mod cycled on when you hit the gate, and I'll explain why once we reach the next room. So I'm going to go ahead and take the gate here. Now the reason you should keep your prop mod on is that it stays on when you go through the gate, but, oh, Charybdis Tyrannos, this is exactly the room I wanted to show. So when you keep your prop mod on, it'll automatically move you towards the transfer conduit in the next room, but you have a certain amount of time, it's about 15 to 20 seconds, where if you don't move, don't touch anything, don't give any commands, and don't activate any modules, the rats will not aggress you. It's kind of like gate invulnerability. So you can take advantage of that time to burn a little bit closer. So see, they took a while there to engage me. Now this room is one of the harder rooms, so Charybdis Tyrannos has a really high damage battleship, and he's going to hit you really hard at any range, like between 20 and 60. And so you have to get in under his guns really, really fast. If there's too many enemies, like neuting and webbing enemies in between you and the Charybdis Tyrannos, which this room might actually have, there's some webbers, which is terrible. So I'm heating my prop mod to get in close, heating my invuln. I'm going to unheat prop since I'm webbed anyway. Take out these webs really fast. They're even more of a threat to me right now than this neuter. Okay, looks like I got under his guns quickly enough. And that was pretty lucky. I'm going to unheat my tank now and just kill the rest of these normally. Make sure that I'm orbiting Charybdis Tyrannos at 500 at this range. He won't hit you. Even if you're in a blue cloud, as long as you're right on him at 500 with prop on, he will not hit you. So I'm just going to take out the rest of the satellite Tyrannoses while I'm orbiting this guy. Now this was fairly lucky. The other webbing cruiser did not web me, and there were only 2 neuting cruisers, so I didn't get neuted out before I reached Charybdis. But if you get unlucky and you start out in a blue cloud or Charybdis spawns really far away, that will be one of the more difficult rooms you can encounter. Because as I mentioned again, he has basically perfect tracking, anywhere between 20 and 60 kilometers. He hits like a truck. He hits really hard, definitely more than you can possibly regen. So you have a very limited time to get under his guns. Now the other option to getting under his guns, if there's too many webs or newts in between you and him and you won't make it to him, is to kite away. So, as soon as you spawn into a room, if you see Charybdis and you see I'd say more than 3 or 4 webs and more than 2 or 3 newts in between you and him, and he's pretty far, then you should just immediately turn around and prop on burn the other way. Heat your prop until you get at least more than 70 to 75 kilometers away. And then make sure you're burning full transversal. At that range, he's not really going to be able to hit you at all, and you can take your time cutting out and killing the cruisers. Once they're dead, you'll heat your prop mod again and burn in back towards him. Don't burn straight at him, but burn at a slight angle. So like if he was far away here, I would burn maybe something like that direction. Keep your prop heated as much as you can or until you're under 20 kilometers from him. And if you need to, heat your hardeners as well. Obviously, ignore the cache until he's dead because he's a huge threat. But that room went fairly smoothly for a Charybdis room. So I'm going to recall drones, reload, turn off invulns to regen some cap. This is why I said you should bring nanite. And you can also actually repair your rapid light missile launchers while they're reloading. So you can actually keep them heated most of the time. 5.2 mil loot here, that's pretty bad. Gonna repair these invulns and repair my prop for a second while I regen some cap. I'm probably not going to wait for these to fully repair. I don't really need it unless I get another Charybdis, which would just be super unlucky. I don't think I've ever gotten Charybdis twice in one run, though. Also, in this fit, it's not really worth going after the other extraction nodes because without a drone link augmenter, your drone control range is pretty small, and you're AB, so you're super slow. I don't find it really worth it to go out and loot all of those extra cans. It takes a lot of time. Once my prop mod finishes, I'm going to turn it on and head to the next room. And here we go. If we get the Leshak room, that'd be a good demonstration for the video. Yeah, we didn't. That's fine. This one's also fairly easy. It's Vixx and a Vedmak. You still have to do some piloting though. So I'm going to cancel these repairs, turn on my invulns, head towards the cache. I'm going to drop my drones and then instantly recall them so I get full site aggro and they won't kill my drones. I'm going to go ahead and start locking up the Vedmak. He's primary target here. He does the most damage. And then I'll lock up a couple of these webbing Vixx because they're annoying. So all damage on the Vedmak. Your buffer should have really no problem with a room like this as long as you clear DPS reasonably. And they've webbed me to shit. I'm moving 150, but I'm a cruiser anyway, so they don't have any problems tracking me in the first place. So Vedmak is almost dead. Vedmak's dead. You see I'm only at 80% shield. Not even a problem. And then just focus fire down these Vixx one at a time. You can largely ignore the Teslas because they're pretty weak and they don't deal much DPS compared to the Vixx that spool up. I'm also going to pop this cache with my missiles and keep my drones on the Vixx. And I'm just going to keep locking and taking out the rest of the frigates. And this is the last room, so after I do that, I'll be done. Now, I did not get the Leshak room, and that is the other room that can give this fit trouble, so I'll briefly explain that while I finish off the site. The Leshak room is basically just 6 Leshaks, or 5 Leshaks, depending on if you're lucky. They'll spawn usually maybe 10 or 20 kilometers behind the gate, which is pretty inconvenient because that's out of your range usually. So you'll have to burn in a little bit, utilize that gate cloak prop mod trick that I mentioned earlier in the video to get closer to them before they aggro on you. They do repair each other. All Triglavian ships have repairs, and some ships that have renewing in their name have remote repairs. So renewing Leshaks will have remote repairs. You want to take those out first sometimes. But the biggest problem that you can have is starving Leshaks. They have battleship-sized nukes, so that's 600 gigajoules neutralized if you're in their optimal. In this fit, you only have 1750 total, so that's like 3 cycles, and you're usually not at full cap, so maybe 2 cycles, and then you're capped out. So the starving Leshaks are a big problem. Also a big problem would be renewing Leshaks because they repair each other, and blinding Leshaks because if they damp you enough that you can't get your drones to start hitting them, then they're going to repair each other a lot, and they're going to spool up a lot before you can start reducing their DPS. And again, they are Triglavian, their damage spools up pretty hard, and this fit can maybe only tank 5 Leshaks for 45 seconds maybe at most. So you really got to start reducing their DPS as fast as you can. For that room though, there's not any special strategies, just heat stuff. They don't have any really problem tracking you, so don't bother heating your prop mod. But heat your hardeners, heat your guns, get your drones on the renewing or starving Leshaks immediately, depending on which one is causing you the most trouble. And it still should be fairly easy. Again, I've never lost this fit to a T4 exotic, even though I've had some pretty difficult rooms with Leshaks and the Charybdis Tyrannos spawn. So it just takes some getting used to, some good piloting. But still, like 90% of the rooms you encounter are going to be just easy with this fit. Just not a problem. As for loot in these sites, out of a T4 exotic, out of the 100 or so sites that I've done, I've got an average of 50 million ISK per site, with an average clear time of 10 to 11 minutes. So it's actually really high ISK per hour, if you don't lose Gilas. And if you're worried about losing Gilas, just practice a couple more in lower tier ones, maybe bling out your fit a little bit. Blinging out your damage will help in some of the rooms, to kill enemies faster, to reduce their DPS faster, especially in the Leshak rooms. But, bling out your tank, bling out your damage maybe, practice a bit. Try on CC as well. Get out like maybe a really bling fit on CC and do some practice on there and get some experience. But that'll be it for this video. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something, and good luck in your sites.